live here at First Financial Bank on Conrad Hilton in Cisco, Texas. Thank you all for listening in. If you're close by, please stop by. Have some refreshments. They've got some new flavors today. Chocolate over there. That's one I'm going to have a hard time turning down. Say hello. Be sure to thank the folks here at First Financial Bank for sponsoring this weekly edition of the Cisco Morning Huddle. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since the Big Down Lobos up their season record to 5-0 following a very convincing 54-14 win in the Big Country Game of the Week over previously unbeaten Stanford. Coach West, have a good week off. Welcome to the show. Another big win for you guys. I know it's had a little time between that Friday and now, but talk a little bit about how you guys felt as a coaching staff coming out of that game with the Bulldogs.
Well, obviously extremely pleased. I was fired up defensively. Our kids were able to tackle athletes in space. That's something you always worry about. Coach Hudson's teams, of course, I know he graduated some off the state championship team, but they still were very talented. And seeing our kids have to make that one-on-one tackle in space is pretty critical. Do you have the athlete to be able to get that accomplished? Coach Brunson made a major adjustment, a major change to his defense to be able to double cover a kid that's been given a full ride to Oklahoma State. And they put you in a pickle in that because they line him up opposite of trips. And I thought we did a good job adjusting to that. We doubled him away from trips and still were able to contain Bo Wimberly in the running game. And when they see that, Coach Hutchinson is a smart guy. He knows that, well, if they're going to double cover Washington opposite of trips, we're going to run the football. So now it's up to our defensive line to make plays and be able to contain things there. And we did an outstanding job of getting that accomplished. And if we weren't able to accomplish that, then we've got to single cover Washington, roll a safety down, put another linebacker in the box to get things done then, and then they're going to have a one-on-one situation with Washington versus our corner, and a very scary situation that we weren't able to win last year. So very, very pleased with the game plan that Coach Brunson came up with. But again, kids have to be able to get that accomplished. The game plan is only as good as the kids getting that operated.
I think it was really exciting. There was a huge crowd that night. I don't know what the numbers were, but there were lots of folks. And the excitement, it was homecoming. There's just a lot going on, and it had to be pretty rewarding for you guys to be in an atmosphere like that, especially for the kids.
Definitely a playoff environment. Probably more people at that game than we've seen at many of our playoff games over the years. Of course, there were some folks that had open weeks, and we had a lot of people in Eastern County that came over and watched that one. Still, it was very rewarding, and it was good for our team to see that type of atmosphere, that pressure.
The overall health of the team, that's something that we talk about from week to week. You guys had a week off. We won't get into all that right now, but you guys coming into tonight, everybody's pretty healthy.
We are healthy as we can be. As of yesterday after practice, our kids were healthy. Kent was nursing a growing injury that week at Stanford. It's healed up. He's had no problems with it thus far.
Good deal. As far as the sub-varsity, let's start with the junior high because those guys actually have played Super Bowl games since the last time we talked. Let everybody know what's going on with the 7th and 8th grade levels.
Well, the 7th and 8th grade, we're able to sweep Stanford, and then we played Dublin the next week. And Dublin came over. We knew very little about them. We hadn't played Dublin in years. And they had a pretty salty junior high. We tied at both levels. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen, but we tied them at the 7th and 8th grade level. We had a chance to win both of those. I really felt like we dominated the 7th grade football game. They had a running back that was just a little faster than the rest of our team that got loose on 2 plays. 2 plays they got loose on. They were both speed options. One of the speed options that he got loose on, he actually reversed field and just outran us to the end zone. But I felt like our kids were the better football team. We just weren't able to show that well on the scoreboard. We were able to control the clock and move the ball 4 yards. Puddle of blood. We just weren't able to break that long. But still very proud of the way they played against Dublin. Although it was a tie, I felt like we got a lot better. Our 8th grade Lobos got up 14-0, and then Orson Silva, our running back, that plays quarterback at times, had a knee injury and had to leave the game, but we were still able to fight and battle, and they found a way to tie. But I felt like probably with Orson's speed, we would have won that game rather handedly if we were able to keep him in the game. He's recovering. He's looking pretty good. I feel like we'll have him back in a week or two. But watching those guys play last night was impressive.
It was a lot of fun last night here. 3 wins again for the Lobos last night. Start with the 7th grade. They won pretty convincingly. Anytime you can win in 7th grade by 20 points, that's a pretty big win. And then the 8th grade had to be one of the most exciting junior high games I've seen in a while.
And I want to talk about that 8th grade. Because again, we lost what we can consider one of our best athletes in the class. There's only 15 kids suited up last night. It's a very small class. And when you lose a kid like that, somebody else has got to step up. And, you know, I didn't feel like that group stepped up last week against Dublin. I mean, we hung in there. But you could see that the kids just didn't feel like they could win without Orson. So having discussions all week long, giving them confidence and being able to practice with that confidence, I felt like, man, they grew up last night. And if you saw that ball game, you saw probably one of the biggest fullbacks we've ever witnessed at the junior high level. He wasn't just big; he was fast as well. He's probably 6 foot 220. And he may be heavier than that, and he was definitely faster than every kid we had on the field. And to see our kids tackle him with numbers and find a way to contain him as well as they could and pull out that victory, I thought was great for that football team. And we're going to have Orson back in a few weeks, and it's going to help those guys as a unit to be able to play without their best athlete and to improve. And when we get Orson back, it's going to be that much better.
Of course, then at the end of the night, the Lobo JV started off district with a big win against Holly. Just about everybody had a lot of playing time last night in that game. And not a brag, but just something that I don't know how much the JV coaches talk to the JV team about this, but they've got a district winning streak that goes back a long, long time. And that's kind of something I feel like they take a lot of pride in.
We do, and we talk about it. We talked about it this week coming in. It is a huge tradition for us. We haven't lost a JV district game since Colt McCoy was the quarterback at Jim Ned, and it's big for us. We really get after it at that level, and our coaching staff does a good job of coaching at that level. Many times, programs overlook their JV, and I feel like our JV kids get more coaching than anybody around. We find a way to win at that level. There's lots of times over the years I've had JV kids that come up and help me at the varsity level, and I leave them down to get that experience and to find a way to win at that level. We've been very, very fortunate to have some great JVs and some great JV coaches that prepare them. I was impressed last night, and I didn't even know Coach Adams was doing this, Coach Pope. We went into it, we know Huddle was both of that game, and let the quarterback calls to play from the sideline as Coach Adams gives it to him, but we haven't done that. To see us implement that last night, and especially some of the adjustments they were making defensively, we really were kind of clueless on where they were going to line up on any given play. It sure helped us. It helped us to be able to see what they were going to be in and to find that 3 technique. And to be able to adjust our play calling toward that. And to see that at the JV level, I thought was pretty fun.
It's interesting you mentioned that. There's 2 or 3 different times I happened to notice, even all the way up in the bleachers, they were actually having to call out to their defense where they wanted their 2 techs or the defensive tackles to line up. And I think one time I heard 31 to the tight end. So just little things like that maybe helps you guys out a little bit.
Well, certainly, and we find those defensive tackles. We usually know where they're going to line up before you get into a situation. But last night was very odd, and it started at the 8th grade level. We could not figure out rhyme or reason when we were going to get that 3 tech or that 1 tech. We got a 1-9 at times to the tight end side, which is great for us, but we might have had the trap called over there, and that's not great. So our JV were able to fix that a little bit and help our situation by calling a play after alignment.
All right, it's time for our first break here on the Cisco Morning Huddle with Coach Brett West. We're at First Financial Bank. Lots of goodies. Stop on in. Appreciate you listening. We'll be back on KTX 97.7 in 2 minutes. West at First Financial Bank. Coach West, as we said earlier, the district slate starts tonight. You guys are on the road in Holly. Share with everybody out there in Lobo land, I guess. What are you guys looking at tonight in the Holly Bearcats?
Well, they've got a very good scheme, both sides of the ball. Offensively, they're running a spread wing tee. Last year they ran the wing tee from under center with a little bit of gun mixed in, but this year it's a little something different. And we don't face it very often. It's not something that we see very often at all. In fact, it's been years since we've seen this type of scheme out of the gun. But it's still a fullback offense. And they have a fullback back. He's an extremely big, strong fullback. He's been to the state powerlifting meet, I believe, the last 3 years. And you got to have that in that system. They have several running backs that are dangerous. They're going through some growing pains with their offensive line. That's where they graduated last year, a heavily graduated offensive line. But they got all their kids healthy and back. And again, they've got a clean slate. So they're playing Cisco in Holly. So they're going to be excited to be able to say, hey, here we go. We got Cisco coming to town, and we're healthy. Defensively, they run a 4-3, very similar to ours with a little split. It's very sound. They do a good job out of it. Their kids, you can tell, are very well coached. I feel like we're faster than them, and that's been probably one of the problems that they've had this year is containing speed. And hopefully we can hurt them on the edge in areas.
Several of the Lobo district foes, at least going into the season, are a little bit more run than they are pass. Like you just said, Holly seems to be a lot of that as well. Do you feel like the district schedule, especially Holly, helps prepare you guys for later on, like from week to week and maybe into the playoffs?
Well, if we're lucky enough to get into the playoffs, it really all depends on who you face. And it's hard to look ahead. But Post has got a pretty good football team that runs the football, very similar to what Holly does. Sonora has a run-based football team, very similar to ours. They're going to be in double tight eye the bulk of the time and running right at you. But then you got Canadian, who is totally spread, very similar to what Stanford just did. So it just depends on who you run into. I think what Holly does will prepare us. It's still an offense that we need to recognize and see and do our job out of. All of these schemes have very similar plays, and you just like to see your kids get better every single week.
All right. Of course, with the beginning of the district slate, that means that in District 4 AA Division II, there are 2 other really important games tonight. I'd like, if you will, just share your thoughts with the listeners on the Coleman-Hamilton game at Coleman. And then the other big matchup tonight is Ballinger at Colorado City.
Well, the Coleman game, the Coleman-Hamilton game, I actually have seen both teams on video. We saw Hamilton versus Comanche, and we traded with Coleman yesterday. We traded a day early so we could plug that into the computer. That's pretty common. But, Hamilton's had some injuries, and this bye week's helped them. I think they've got their kids back. They are a big physical football team, very typical of what Hamilton has always had. They just don't have much depth. Hamilton, to win the game tonight, will have to control the ball, much similar to what they did to us last year. We struggled with them. We had a hard time stopping the 4-yard gain last year. Hamilton will have to be able to do that. They'll have to have ball control and work that clock because they're not going to outrun Coleman. They've got to be able to get their 3.3 yards and milk it. But I still see Coleman's speed way too much for Hamilton, and they've got way too much depth. Coleman, watching them on video, they have a lot of athletes. They're going to make Hamilton tackle them in space, and Hamilton is going to have some trouble with that.
I was wrong on that other game. Actually, Colorado City Ballinger is in Ballinger, so who knows? I think probably the overall sentiment for people outside of these programs is maybe they feel like everybody's underachieved, but as you've already said several times, a lot of key injuries for just about everybody in the district.
And Colorado City has 2 key injuries, and they're not going to get those injuries back. They've lost a running back with an ACL and a pretty good wide receiver to an ACL. I mean, the kids are going to be fine, but they're not going to have them the rest of the year. So they're struggling a little bit with that injury bug as well. But Coach Gainey does a good job. Now, this is his first year as a head coach in Colorado City, but he's been the offensive coordinator there for years. And, man, they do a great job of spreading you out and making you tackle in space. He just doesn't have quite the athletes that he's had the last 2 years. But his son is back. His son was injured last year and was unable to play the quarterback position, and he's doing well. They're lighting up numbers in the passing game. I think they had up close to 400 yards of passing against Breckenridge the very first week. So again, Ballinger's going to have to find a way to contain that, and I still feel like Colorado City will find a way to beat Ballinger tonight.
Of course, excuse me. One of the things this year that makes it a little more interesting, I guess, for all the teams, there's kind of there's back and forth talk about whether or not we like those 4 teams in the playoffs. At the very least, it makes every district game a little bit more important to sneak 4 teams in, get that last one in. Everybody's got a chance, maybe up until the very last week of the season.
That's exactly right. Talking to the Holly coach last night, it's you could be 1-4 and find a way to get in the playoffs in this deal, and that's he's hoping to win more games than that. And he wasn't necessarily talking about himself, but that situation is out there. That's a possibility. I think what people didn't like about 3 teams in the playoffs was just those byes, and we didn't like that last year. I felt like that hurt us last year. Having that bye week right before Canadian, at the time I thought, well, what a great thing. We're going to attempt to heal up, but I felt like it hurt us for some reason. So that is thrown out now. There won't be any byes there in 2A, and I feel like that'll be a good thing.
All right, there you have it. 4 teams in the playoff is a good thing. No bye week for anybody. Coach West, appreciate you being in. Good luck tonight. You guys on the road. Be safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And for everyone that's been here and part of this, we appreciate First Financial Bank for hosting this. Next week we'll be here, same time, same place. I want to thank Matthew back in the studio for running the board and making us on time and well delivered as best we could be. Anyway, hope you'll join us again next week on KTX 97.7. Tonight, kickoff at 7:30. Pregame starts at 7 on KWBY. I want to let everybody know really quickly, the Cisco College game tomorrow night at 7 o'clock is not going to be carried on KTX this week. It's going to be on KWBY 98.5. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff, so one programming note there for you. For everybody that's been a part of this one, Lee Lewis signing off. Have a great weekend, everyone.